Good morning, everybody. 8 Australians attempt suicide every single hour. And in 2012, I was one of them. I want to assure you that I'm actually in better shape than I've ever been in my life. But my fear is that COVID-19 is going to cause these numbers, the incidence of suicide, to increase. And for that reason, I have put together this presentation. I have included insights and tools that I hope will be really helpful to you and for you to support the people around you. So who's up for some tools? Maybe give me a thumbs up, pop something in the chat box if you're keen. I'd like to introduce and thank our chat manager, Caroline. She will be coordinating the chat for us today and asking me questions. I'd really like to get a sense of who's in the room, and maybe you could pop in the chat box your name and where you're from, your suburbs. So, for example, I'm Donna and I'm from Everton Park in Brisbane.
We've got some people here today, Donna. We've got Jackie from Nunda, Lisa from Carina, Donna from Redlands, Sarah from Brisbane, Meg is in Perth, Sam in Everton Park, yep, Zach in Mitchelton, and Phil's on the Gold Coast. We've got Rebecca in Melbourne, Norman Park, Vivian, Joe from Sherwood, Mark from Bribey Island, Danielle from Brisbane, Tracy from the West End, and another one from Sherwood, and another person, Sari in Melbourne. There you go, that's excellent.
Wow, that's amazing. I had thought maybe we would only have Brisbane people. So hello to all of you. It's so great to have you here today. So let me tell you a little bit about, I guess, what I'm going to cover. And I would first say that what I'm going to share today, it's drawn from my personal experience of having a crisis and a mental health crisis, and the subsequent sort of recovery to thriving, and then also my training as a mental health first aid instructor. I'll give you a little bit of an outline for the session. So initially, we're going to talk about some threats to mental health. I've identified 5 key threats. I'm sure that there are others. And in the second part of the session, you'll have an opportunity to raise any that you're particularly concerned about. I'm going to talk about maintaining mental health, tools that we can do that with, and also how we can support each other. As I mentioned, there'll be that section on questions, and I'll also provide some information about the different support options that are available to people. I think it's really important to recognise that everybody responds to stressful situations in different ways. I'm sure that you've probably observed a bit of that yourself. People who can be fine right now can actually find themselves struggling down the track, and vice versa. I know for me, I had a conversation with a friend who I regarded as very grounded and quite a spiritual person in the last week. And she was talking about conspiracy theories, and I was shocked. And it made it really clear to me that even those that you don't expect can actually be struggling at this time. So it's very important that we are checking in with people and supporting each other. Let's look at the threats to our mental health. Information overload. There is so much of it. Has anybody else noticed the continuous flow of media coverage of the coronavirus? You could actually sit there and watch that stuff all day. But I think it's really important to recognize that there is a negativity bias in our media. And part of the reason is because studies have shown that most of us have a negativity bias, and it comes from our survival instinct. It's really important that we are conscious of the amount of information that we're taking in and the sources of that information. I would encourage you to have a particular credible source that you check in with once or twice a day. An example might be the ABC News. I'd love to hear other credible sources that you found. You can pop them into the chat box. I would also recommend that you balance it out with some positive news or information. Perhaps some of you have already found a Facebook group called the Kindness Pandemic. In this group, people are sharing acts of kindness that they've either witnessed all that they've done themselves. And it absolutely restores your faith in human nature. There are some really wonderful things that are happening out there in our community. If there's other groups or sites that you've come across, feel free to pop them in the chat box as well. And I can collate this information and share some of it, and it'd be great to get your ideas on it. The next point is financial stress. Lots of us have experienced a dramatic change or perhaps even a total loss of our income. Obviously, that's incredibly stressful. How do you pay bills? How do you navigate this process? The important thing to recognise is that there is support available. The government have made some amazing arrangements available to people, and it's really important to work out what is at your disposal. You might need to do some research. You might need to speak to some people. I know financial stress is a big one, because back when I had my crisis, one of the factors that contributed was the feeling that I was going to get sacked from my job, and that was going to cause financial stress for my family. I had not long before talked my partner into refinancing the mortgage on the property he had owned when we met. And when everything went south, I stressed out completely about that. And I got to the point where that just felt so incredibly difficult. And what I did that was really bad was to actually just hold that stuff inside me. The most important thing that you can do is to reach out to somebody and talk about what's going on. Don't go it alone. There is so much help available. I should have mentioned I have some notes on this talk that I can send through to you after the talk, and it'll have some resources about who you could reach out to as well. Isolation. This is a big one. We're so used to being connected, and we're wired for connection. Brené Brown tells us that. And physical distancing doesn't have to stop us from being connected. We just have to get more creative about how we do that. Obviously, this is an amazing example of how we can still connect. Since I started isolation voluntarily 13 days ago, I have had a house party chat. I don't know if you've found the house party app yet, but you can have a chat with up to 8 friends, and it's free. And yeah, we had drinks and chats, and it felt amazing to connect with friends. I've also been to a Zoom networking Friday afternoon drinks. Everyone brought their own drinks and nibblies to the party. For that one, there was a requirement that there was no talk about coronavirus. There is no reason for us not to be connected. Imagine if this had happened even 20 years ago. We wouldn't be able to do all this. We are so fortunate to be able to remain connected during this time. If you're at a bit of a loss for what to do while you're isolating, because I know it can be pretty hard for the extroverts out there. I certainly identify as an extrovert. This can be a great opportunity to connect with your family, to read books, to read audiobooks, to learn a new skill. There are some amazing websites that we can do free courses on, or very low cost courses. Things like Coursera, Khan Academy, Udemy, Class Central's a new one I've heard about. Do you know others? Do you want to put some in the chat box? I'd love to hear of any others you know about. This can be a great time for us to upskill for the future. It can also be an amazing time to do those things that you've been planning to do when you got around to it. I'm going to give you a round to it right now. Here it is. Write your list and work out the ones that you could do while you're in isolation. I'm sure that there will be a few of them. The fact is, time is the only non-renewable resource. We can stress out about things, we can feel isolated, or we can take some action and use this to our advantage. Definitely, there is no need for you to feel isolated. And if anybody on this call is feeling isolated, you are very welcome to give me a call. The next one is a loss of purpose or sense of identity. This can be a really big one. So many of us attach our identity or our sense of purpose to our work or to our businesses, to our status. to our roles in society. And all of a sudden, that's all been thrown on its head. Back when I had my crisis and feared that I would lose my job, the very possibility of that was incredibly difficult. If I wasn't this competent, enthusiastic HR professional, who the hell was I? I wasn't who I thought I was. But what I can tell you is my life is actually better than it's ever been. I have such a sense of purpose with what I do in the world. I have a sense of calm that I never had. I feel incredibly fulfilled. And this is available to all of us. Right now, it might be that we need to find our sense of purpose with our family, or just learning to thrive as we get through this massive challenge we've got. But there is every possibility that things can actually work out better than you've ever expected. I just encourage you to think for a moment about the times when you've either experienced or witnessed a really challenging situation, things going horribly wrong, what seems so despairing. But then when it's all been said and done, things have actually worked out better. People have been happier. They have found their place in the world, or they found a fulfilling and joyful life. So this is possible, and I think it's so important to hold on to that hope. Finally, the fear and uncertainty. We don't know when this is going to end, and we don't know how many casualties there will be. My biggest fear is that as many people will be lost to suicide and to mental illness than to the actual virus. And I don't want to see that. Just this morning, I got an email from Lifeline to say that there has been a 25% increase in the calls to their service. People are really doing it tough. What we focus on grows, and all we can really do is focus on what we can control right now. When I say what we focus on grows, it doesn't matter whether it's good or bad. Where our thoughts go, our energy flows. So please do think about what you're focusing on, where your thoughts are. I'm going to share some resilience strategies with you now. How are you all going? Is everybody good? How's it looking, Caroline? I've only got 5 little windows on my screen, so I'm hoping that this is helpful to you all, and that that I haven't lost you. You haven't gone to sleep.
We're getting some good here comments. All good, thanks. Yeah,
great, awesome. Okay, so in terms of resilience, the first thing I'd say is stay calm. I know that's not always easy, but when we get in a distressed state, when we're in a heightened state of anxiety, many of you will know that the thinking part of our brain actually stops functioning or doesn't function as well. We get hijacked by that lizard brain, by the amygdala, and what we need to do now is to be able to tap in to our executive functioning and work through the challenges that we've got in life. So I do encourage you to stay calm, and I'm going to share some strategies for doing that with you. The next one is to monitor your thoughts. Just keep a check on them. We actually don't have to believe everything that we think. And I encourage you, when they're feeling quite negative or we're ruminating excessively, to just check in with yourself. We actually can catch our thoughts and decide which thoughts we want to give airtime. I learned this the hard way, but I'm so grateful to know that I don't have to listen to all those thoughts. I would only have 10% of the unhelpful thoughts that I used to have in my life. And one of the ways I got to that point was by questioning the thoughts, thinking to myself, is this thought taking me to where I want to go? Is this a useful belief? And if it's not, I just let it go through to the keeper. And by doing that and actually replacing your thoughts with positive ones, it's actually possible to rewire our brain and to create more positive default thoughts. And I really encourage you to do that for this time, but into the future as well. It's a beautiful skill to develop. Now, diet, exercise, and sleep, they go without saying, and they're every bit as important as they ever have been. But I'd like to share some additional resilience strategies with you. These are not exhaustive. These are some that I have found particularly helpful. I know you will have many of your own, and we're keen to hear some of those today as well. The first is gratitude. Now is the time to resurrect your gratitude practice, or if you have one, keep it going. And if you don't, introduce a gratitude practice. Gratitude changes what we see in the world. You could write it in a journal. You could write a list of people to reach out to and give them a call and let them know how grateful you are to them or for something that they've done for you. I also have a practice that involves myself and 4 other people texting 3 gratitudes every day. This has been going for 3 years. It's amazing because 1, you've got accountability. They're expecting to get your gratitudes. 2, you get a reminder when theirs pop in. And 3, you actually vicariously live the joy of other people. Even in times like this, there are things to be grateful for. They're often the little things. I'm certainly extremely grateful for the technology that we have at our disposal. In our group, we try not to say the same things twice, at least in the period of a month. And by doing this, it encourages you to look deeper at all of the things that you usually take for granted. Brené Brown found in her research with 11,000 pieces of data, which I assume is people, that 100% of those who identified as joyful had a gratitude practice. Not an attitude of gratitude, she said, but an actual practice. So please, I encourage you to introduce or retain gratitude in your resilience strategies. The next one is to breathe. If things are feeling a bit crazy, and even when they're not, just stop. Connect with yourself. Connect with your breath. Be mindful. It can really calm things down. And when we're in that state, we can often let go of all of those thoughts that are bombarding us. I would also encourage you to think about a mindfulness or meditation practice. There's loads of great apps around that you can do this with. There's also like meditation challenges floating around at the moment. Meditation totally changed my life. I have a sense of calm and a connection with myself that I didn't have in the past. And I absolutely attribute it to this practice. Sometimes people say to me, oh, I can't do meditation because I just have lots of thoughts. I can't slow my brain down. I'm one of those people too. But what I do is I just recognize when it's happening and I come back. And maybe I only get a few seconds at a time of stillness, but it's a practice. And we can work to master that, or at least take what we can from the experience. Help others and connection. One of the quickest routes to feeling better is to go and do something for someone else. There is research that says when we help someone, they're likely to pay it forward twice. Imagine the ripple effect that we can have in the world when we do that. When we help someone, it gives us a burst of happy chemicals like dopamine in our brain. I encourage you, whenever you're feeling in a funk during this crisis and beyond, reach out and do something for someone else. It's life-changing. And you know, that connection, how are your friends going? I have contacted more people in the last 2 weeks to check in and have a chat than I have in the last 6 months. And it's been amazing. I feel like it is one of the gifts from this challenge that we're currently in. Please reach out to the people you know. I rang a guy that I cycle with on the weekend, and we had a lovely chat, and he was so chuffed that I rang. And I rang because he'd said something that concerned me a bit about like his super going down when we were out on a ride a few weeks ago. And I said to him, I'm so pleased that you've appreciated my call. Why don't you call someone else as well? Why don't you make their day in the same way? We can do that for each other, and it's a little thing. It doesn't take a lot of time, but you'll get something positive from it. Finally, do your thing. So if you've heard me speak from the stage, many of you will know about your thing, okay? It's what energizes you. Mine's cycling. I'm still cycling. It looks a bit different now. I'm out on the bike path by myself and usually listening to an audio book. Usually I'm out in a group. Whatever your thing is, you know, can you still do it? Is there an adaptation to use while we're in these restrictions? Could this be an opportunity to find another thing? We're not limited to just one thing. Think about what brings you energy, what makes your heart sing, and spend time doing it, because it will lift your mood and it will give you energy to cope with the challenges that we're all facing. I love this quote. When I saw it on the wall of a training room I was in, it really resonated with me. Every day is not good, but there is good in every day. So let's look for that. Supporting others, so critical at this time. Let's stay connected with each other. As I said, reach out to people. You might write a list of all of the people in your life and start ringing them. You know, schedule a couple a day and reach out and see how they are. It can, as I said, be one of the most positive things about the experience we've had. I don't usually prioritize this because I feel like I'm so busy in my life. Well, guess what? I'm not so busy anymore, and I'm thriving on this. And I can't wait to, you know, find ways to continue this when things return to a bit more normality in our life. It's going to be important that we're having "Are you okay?" conversations with people. If you're not really sure about how to do this, visit the Are You Okay website. They've got an amazing model on there. It's very easy to remember. It's called ALEC. The first step, the A, is ask how they're going. Ask if you're okay. You might say, hey, I've noticed you seem a bit quiet. How are you? What's going on for you? The next step, the L, is to listen. And do it non-judgmentally. The other day when my friend was talking about the conspiracy theories, you know, my friend and I could have said, there was 3 of us on the chat at the time, we could have said to her, are you crazy? Like, or gee, well, why are you thinking about that? But instead we just held a space and let her talk about what was going on. And we asked her a few questions out of curiosity. And it's so important that we're non-judgmental. Just give people the space, because when she was able to share fully what was going on for her, we were able to ask her questions that were helpful in shifting her perspective or helping her to entertain other perspectives. The next step is E, for encourage action. You don't have to be an expert. You're not an expert, but you can help somebody to get to some professional support if it's what they need. There are psychologists, there are therapists, all sorts of professionals working online at the moment. So that doesn't need to be a barrier for us. Encourage them to get the support they need. And then the next step is C, for check-in. Put a note in your diary, follow up and see how they are. Have things improved for them? Have they made that appointment? Sometimes you're going to get denial from people, and that's okay. We don't want to push the point. We just want to let them know that we care and we're there for them. So as I said, visit the Are You Okay website for those resources and more. The next point I'd like to say is that sometimes you're going to get a sense that someone's struggling, and if you do, I want you to ask whether they're having thoughts of ending their life. I know this is a very confronting question if you haven't asked it before, but what I'd like you to do is even practice on the people around you, those you trust, to build up some muscle memory. People sometimes fear that if they ask this question, it might encourage somebody to do it or put the idea in their head. The research tells us that's not true. What it says is that it saves lives. And people will often just think, oh, they know. I've asked this question lots of times. I asked it on the phone as a Lifeline crisis supporter, and I've also asked it of people in my life. And I've had a variety of responses. The important thing is if they do need help, that you help them to get that support ASAP. So that might be ringing Lifeline. If you're really worried about them, it might mean ringing the emergency services. What we ideally want them to do is commit to staying safe while they get some help. There is a very useful guideline on the Mental Health First Aid website for dealing with people with suicidal behaviours and thoughts. I'll send you a link to that. Does anybody have any questions on that stuff that I've covered so far?
I've got to share with you, Donna, if that's okay, from the group.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's said it's worth noting that most psychologists cannot charge above the Medicare gap for telehealth appointments, so cost should not be a barrier for most.
Yep.
And a personal share by one of the group that they didn't realise they weren't okay until somebody asked them, and then they broke down. So it's very important, as you said, to make sure that you do ask the question, because that person could be grateful for somebody asking and taking the time.
Thank you for sharing that with us. That actually concludes the formal content that I prepared. But as I said, we're really keen to hear your questions. I know that there is a wealth of knowledge in this call right now, and yeah, keen to hear from you as well.
Got our first question from Rachel.
Great.
So, suggestions on adjusting and now working from home, how to balance home and work stresses now they overlap, and any other mini coping strategies for this time.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think there's a lot being written and posted out there about this. I have had my little boy with me for the last 13 days in voluntary isolation, and we struggled at first. And I'm going to be very honest and vulnerable here and say that 2 days in, I begged his dad to send him back to school, because I said, look, I can't cope, I can't work, I'm not one of those mothers. And then my partner had the news on that night and a current affair, and I just went, whoa, I'm not sending my boy back to school. I don't want his principal to get this. I don't want to be in any way responsible for spreading the virus. And what I realized was I had to change my expectations. So I think routine is really good. We've been working on a routine. We write a list every day of the things, options that he has, and I brief him on the time, such as now, that he actually can't interrupt me. So I am often dressing in a way that I would dress for a work day, and having a routine, and I break it up with some time for work, some time to play ping pong with my son, time to set him up with an activity on the computer, or some written activity. So I think routine is really critical. I would love to hear other people's thoughts on this. If you want to put it in the chat, Caroline can share it as well.
Donna has said she thinks for the most part you've reminded her of all the things that she knows, but you also remind me to pick up some of these tools again and implement them. It's terrible that they can be the first things we drop, but should be the first things we do each day.
Absolutely. Any other tips around the managing the days, the overlap now between work and family? Has any of you found things particularly helpful that we can share with others?
We've had some good suggestions for some of the tools to use, like the TED Talks, educational, inspirational, to help fill your day and inspire you. Yeah. MOOC, MOOC, and yes. Addison and edX, and LinkedIn Learning were some of the things that came through.
Awesome.
And there's an app called Smiling Mind app, which I'm going to have a look at, which is a good fit for children and adults.
Beautiful.
And an Insight Timer app, and www.meditainment.com. So there's some good things coming through, and there's some more messages here. Let's have a look. Let's see what's come through.
Awesome.
So Mary's commenced a walking practice and had contacted different friends for different days and finds exercise is a release.
Yes.
Sheila has a routine in the morning with exercise and meditation that sets Sheila up.
Yeah.
And your boy, Zach, what a lovely name, find a working space that you can close the door and separate from work and home.
Beautiful. Not always possible, but definitely great to do if you can.
And I've got to share with you, because I've got my sister-in-law with me here, and we have another friend that we live in the same area, and we were walking together, the three of us. So this 2-person rule has put a bit of a spanner in our works, and we do what we call our walking relay now. My sister-in-law will pick me up, we'll walk to the end of the road of our other friend, she'll go down to their house, I'll walk straight ahead with the dog, they'll do left of the circuit, I'll do right of the circuit, we'll meet in the middle with 1.5 in between us, and we'll swap the mutual friend, and I'll go off with the friend and my sister-in-law walks back to her street, and I pick my sister-in-law up and we walk home together. So you can find ways around it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is important too that we do try and limit the number of people that we come in contact with as well. So for us, we're not actually seeing anybody, although my partner's still going to work at the moment, which is challenging, but we're not actually seeing anyone socially. It's all over technology right now.
So we've got some more comments to share as well. Is that okay?
Yeah, great.
So Bianca says keeping to routines is helpful, has 3 teenagers at home now too, as well as working from home, setting expectations and setting jobs, and they needed to plan to be able to cope. Megan, hello Megan, it's important to know that you're not expected to replace teachers, good point, and they need joy right now, and you can learn and have fun.
Yeah.
And from Tracy, it's about lowering all expectations and buying a lot more takeaway meals that help her time management, but support the local restaurants.
Nice.
Sam, structure helps Sam, plans options for son, and he picks which one he wants to do when. Letting go helps too.
That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing, Sam. That's working well.
And it's not going to run as smoothly as it will in the workplace, so just go with the flow, have a break for exercise over lunchtime, get out of the house, meditation and yoga.
Yeah, there's yoga happening online. How amazing is that?
Has anybody got any good yoga online links they can send?
Yeah, if you want to email them through, I'll be happy to share them with others. I know my friend Paul is doing yoga online, and I heard that the yoga teacher at the gym I go to is doing it online, so I'm sure I would have access to that. It's just something I'm not prioritizing right now. It's so amazing to know it's available.
That's good. That's good. And the gratitude email, there's a work gratitude email. Day starts off with what's important, what you're grateful for. And yes, that a lot of the group like that gratitude email.
Yeah, awesome. And that's the thing, we can introduce some of these into our workplaces when we are all back together as well, just these practices that really help connect us as teams. A lot of the strategies that I talk about in my keynotes are directly transferable to the workplace and can really improve workplace culture. In terms of meditation apps, there's a few that I know about. One Giant Mind, these are ones that I've used. Buddhify is the one that I currently use. It's fabulous. Simply Being, Headspace, there are many options available, which is so exciting. One question I thought of for all of you is, right now, I am doing my second reading of Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, and it is incredibly powerful. I don't know if you know about the book, but basically Viktor Frankl was a doctor who was a prisoner of war at Auschwitz, and oh my gosh, what they went through was incredible, incredibly bad. And he shares insights and observations around human behavior and what happened there. And one of his main conclusions is that the only thing that we have control of is our attitude. We often can't control the circumstances, or particularly when we can't control the circumstances. The only thing we can control is our attitude. And he talks a lot about suffering too, and the strength and power that can come out of our suffering as well. I'm sure that we are all going to learn so much from this crisis. I personally feel like there is a disruption, a resetting of the universe going on, and I think that there will be positives that come from this. Are there any books that give you strength, are of comfort right now? We'd love to hear your book ideas. Is there a book that you feel everyone must read during the crisis?
Yeah, Zach, Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz.
Great.
Yes. Donna, could you just repeat the name of the book again? Sheila would like to make a note of the book.
Yeah, sure. It's Man's Search for Meaning. And it's by Viktor Frankl, Dr. Viktor Frankl.
We've got from Sarah, this sounds like a great book, The Choice by Edith Eger.
Okay, awesome.
Tracy
I'll be adding these to my Audible list.
Tracy has Lee Sales, An Any Ordinary Day, and also that's come up twice now.
Oh, that's a good sign.
We've got The Power of a Peaceful Woman by Jennifer Forster.
Yeah.
And Trauma Stewardship, An Everyday Guide to Caring for Self While Caring for Others by Connie Burke and Laura van der Noot-Lipsky.
Great. So many ideas. Has anybody read any of Eckhart Tolle's work? Eckhart's got a book called The Power of Now and another book called The New Earth. And there is a podcast that he has with Oprah Winfrey on The New Earth, and they break it down chapter by chapter, and he explains aspects of the book and gives you a deeper knowledge of the book. And while it's a recorded podcast now, people actually phoned up and asked their questions. So you've said this, what do you mean by that? Or I'm a Christian, how does this relate to someone like me when I have these beliefs? And it's amazing. It's just this additional layer of depth that you wouldn't necessarily get from just reading the book. So it's a great companion to reading the book.
Some good books come up. Bianca's read the book you've mentioned. Tracy's recommended Julia Baird, Phosphorance.
Okay.
And Sam loves reading No Mud, No Lotus.
No Mud, No Lotus.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to save the chat today, and I'll put together a book list from what's come up. That'd be great. So are there any other questions? Is there any way that I can serve you today from my experiences? I'm very open. Something that I might point out, I've been asked by some clients about whether mental health first aid is available remotely or over online. And Mental Health First Aid Australia are currently working on a version of the course that we can deliver remotely. It will be a combination of self-paced blended learning and then a webinar component. The community-based program will be released pretty soon, I believe. Certainly in the next couple of weeks is the plan. And then there will be a workplace version after that. So if that's something that is of interest to you, please reach out to me and I'll keep you posted on the developments there.
So the group are definitely interested in the list and the list of apps. A lot of them are thanking you for your time, found it very interesting. And Sam has been in 12 days of self-isolation, and this was a good reminder that they have all these tools in their toolbox already.
Right. Okay, so we don't want to keep you on the line if our work is done. I'll just give you another minute or two, see if any further inquiries come through or questions come through, and then we'll wrap it up.
There's a couple of good recommendations. Peter is recommended Living Works Australia has a Living Works starts a 90-minute online training program, and there is some interest in the mental health training as well too when that evolves.
Okay. All right, I'll definitely keep people abreast of that then. Look, I think the important thing to remember is we are going to get through this. We're going to get through it one step, one conversation, one day at a time. And we need to get through it together. I'm just going to put up a list of supports as well, and I'm going to leave it there just for another minute or two, and then we'll close the meeting. Thank you so much for coming. I really hope that you found this material and the discussion helpful. All right, take care, everybody. Thank you.